So I saw another movie this week. Now I'm talking about the one and only movie that just came out. I was going to look up the pronunciation. Erupcja. Okay, let's check it out. Nope, that's not Polish. This is different. Erupcja. Okay, Erupcja. Erupcja, film starring the pop star Charlie XCX, a musician and, world famous pop star Charlie XCX, and other people. And it's a very interesting film. If you don't know about it, it's called Erupcja because I assume it means like eruption in Polish. And the whole premise of the film is that these two people are in a relationship, a romantic relationship, and they go to Poland for a holiday from London. That's what people in London call a vacation, FYI. So you're not like, what? What holiday? Christmas? No, it was a vacation. And so they go to Poland, and, this guy's going to propose to her, but she doesn't really want him to because she's not really into him. And she has this habit of going to Poland and sort of exploding her relationships by getting back together with, I guess, an ex. It's not clear that they were romantic, but you kind of assume they're romantic, but it's not explicitly clear. But her old friend, this... Nell, this character Nell. So Charlie XCX's character, I'm working on learning the character's names, is Bethany. This guy's Rob. And then Nell is the third person who is Polish and lives in Poland. So Bethany and Nell have this long history. They've known each other for years. And Bethany visits Poland and they hang out and they go to clubs. And I guess they do drugs. And they just they must be romantic. But it's possible they're not. We don't ever see them kiss, I don't believe, or like Nell and Bethany. But it certainly seems like it has all the hallmarks of a romantic relationship. They're clearly very intimate in other ways. But it is interesting that you don't see that. I guess it doesn't matter. I mean, what matters is Bethany's just lying to Rob and doesn't tell him that she has this close friend in Poland. And doesn't tell him when she goes and meets with this close friend in Poland, and just abandons this guy she knows, her boyfriend, who she knows is gonna propose to her, because God forbid. So basically, the film is really interesting because it explores selfishness and it explores how we are in our relationships, and selfishness is something I think we all struggle with because. Well, you either struggle with being too selfish or you struggle with not being selfish enough, or which is not an accurate way to put it. The best way to put it is you either struggle with being too selfish or you struggle with being too selfless, I think. And that's the challenge, is to balance those two things. You could struggle with both. So you try to find the middle ground where you're putting your needs first, but also putting other people's needs first sometimes. And it's challenging. This is what I talk about in my relationships video on the main channel. I got this 5-hour relationships video. And I'm working on other projects related to relationships. And I find it very interesting. So this film, I think, looked into this theme very well. Because Bethany has a lot of selfishness. And she really doesn't consider Rob's needs or wants. And is very rude to him. All she really needed to do was tell him, hey man, I'm not that into you. I'm sorry, you seem like a great guy. I think we should probably, I found the ring that you're going to get proposed to me with. I think probably maybe we're not the right fit. And then boo-hoo, they move on, And spoiler alert, so skip this whole part, obviously. Never watch a YouTube discussion of a film that you don't want spoiled. Just a little thing I'd recommend. But at the end, you do see Rob is able to move on perfectly well once Nell explains to him what's going on with Bethany, which is an interesting twist that the movie does, where he gets together with this woman Nell and this artist guy, I forget his name, and they sort of help him understand what Bethany's doing. Which is a very interesting twist, and then you don't see Bethany for the last 20 minutes of the film, at least. It's very interesting. You don't see Charlie XCX. Maybe she had a prior engagement. It is entirely possible Charlie XCX had a prior engagement and couldn't film with them. But it is also possible that it was like an intentional part of the film. It made a lot of sense for Charlie XCX to be gone. It's sort of not about her anymore. It's about the impact she's had on the other people in her life. And it's not just Rob. It's Nell. I mean, it's confusing for Nell to deal with Bethany's kind of like behavior of like show up and have an intense relationship and then leave, and then show up and have and then at one point Bethany's like, Nell, are you ever thinking of moving out of Poland? And Nell's like, no. And it's like, right. And Bethany's like, well, maybe consider it. It's like, no, that, like, sure, you're allowed to suggest stuff like that, but like maybe it's just not meant to be, right? But the interesting parallel is you see Bethany being quite selfish and really not considering Rob's feelings at all. And then you see Nell being a little selfish with her own partner, who you assume it's romantic. They call it a date at one point, blah, blah, blah. But Nell has this partner named Ula. Hold on. Nell's partner's name in Erupcja. Ula. Okay, so Ula is this person who Nell is dating, but Nell kind of acts selfishly and doesn't show up for a thing with Ula and doesn't consider Ula's feelings. So you see Nell and Bethany clearly have this relationship where they kind of like indulge in selfishness with each other. And that's part of the eruptions. They get together and a volcano always erupts. So there's passion, like literally a volcano erupts. So there's passion mixed with this magic of this coincidence. Whoa, volcanoes erupt when we get together. And Rob points out later in the film, volcanoes erupt somewhere on Earth almost every week or something. So it's really not that rare, which is a hilarious point in the film. But yeah, there's the passion, there's the magical coincidence, and then there's the indulgence and sort of selfishness and like putting their own needs and their own indulgence of each other way ahead of other, demands in their life, other needs and commitments. But yet Nell is able to make progress with that more than Bethany for probably a variety of reasons. We actually, in some ways, we really, even though Bethany's like the main character, we really don't know much about her. I mean, we don't know what she does for work. We don't know what Rob does for work. We know what Nell does for work. She works at a flower shop. We know Nell's family member. We know Nell's sister. We don't know Rob's family members. We don't know Bethany's. As far as I'm aware, we don't know anything about their family members. So ironically, we know Nell the best. In some ways, she's the main character. But anyway, so yeah, you see her grow and be able to not be selfish towards Ula anymore. And then you see Bethany not grow. You see Bethany kind of regress and just go full selfishness, literally abandon Rob. The reason like I would not be a great film writer is like I just want people to like talk things out. So like, you never see them talk it out, Rob and Bethany. I think it happens off screen. We see like a title card in the narration. Like there's a narrator for this film, which I don't love, by the way, but I guess it works. I always wonder like what would have happened if they tried to write it without a narrator, which they might have tried. Like, could you not have communicated this stuff? But it does allow it to be sort of self-contained and almost like a book where we don't have to see Rob and Bethany break up at the end. We don't have to see them go back to London. It would kind of take away from the like sort of fairy tale, like fantastical, like located in one place vibe of it. So I do appreciate the narrator in some ways, but it does make it feel a little contrived and like dictated to you rather than shown. But I guess that's normal. I don't know. Anyways, so yeah, I mean, it's just interesting. I mean, why does Rob pee sitting down is one question I had. At one point you see Rob pee sitting down and it's just a funny detail. Some people pee sitting down, obviously. People of all genders can pee sitting down. It's a normal thing to do sometimes. It was just an interesting detail because you assume he could pee standing up if he wanted, but he pees sitting down. So just a fun little detail there. I don't know what it means. Just wanted to add it. I don't want to speculate. But I mean, it's very interesting. This image we're looking at is when they're on a bench and he's asking her to teach him Polish words, which she doesn't even speak Polish. So I don't know why she's teaching him Polish. She's teaching him just the basic hello, thank you, and then he asks her to say I love you in Polish, and she says it, and then he says it back, and it's a very well written moment because you see that he's saying it to her because he means it, and she's saying it to him to teach him the phrase in Polish. Anyways, what was I going to say? So yeah, Nell grows and is no longer selfish. Bethany doesn't. Rob grows and realizes like, okay, she's just not for me. It's okay, and so on. But he's a little bit of like it's not really about Rob. It feels like it's mostly about Nell, honestly, in some ways, but also Bethany. Anyways, good film, very interesting, good exploration of like human relationships and how we go about them. So I'd recommend. Yeah, I'd give it the Verbal Journal podcast stamp of approval. This is a